Welcome to the ACC Panic Room alongside Lauren Brownlow. I'm Joe Ovies. And it was a busy day in the ACC. If you're looking for our thoughts on NC State and North Carolina, the Heels getting a good win over the Wolfpack, now 5-1 in January, go look at the other Panic Room because we're not going to talk about that. There's plenty of other things to talk about, including Coach K and him making people mad or whatever it is. But rather than, I feel like, Brian, I don't know about you, I feel like trying to explain Mike Krzyzewski press conferences would be boring today, boring this morning. Do you agree with that?
Kind of. I mean, I do think it's worth some context because I think somewhat fairly, the reaction that some of us who cover Duke regularly have had to it does very much come across as caping.
But it's not though. It's context setting.
I understand that, but I also understand why people would feel that way because, they're already sensitive about that when it comes to Duke and Coach K. So I understand why people might feel that there's caping involved on our end. I actually thought Sean Kress's kind of take on this was probably one of the best ones, although I think he probably gives K a little too much credit, where I think he sort of insinuated that K did this to deflect.
I was actually texting with a media member about this, local media member about this, that it's a Roy Williams-esque deflection. I disagree with that.
I do too.
I think this is such a. Tell you what.
Yeah.
I dropped something off for you.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's do this because I feel like this is more important than talking about Coach K. Because people do it for the engagement. You know how I talked yesterday about when a team loses, you get that performative angry tweet? Like, I'm really mad about my team losing. I'm going to show you how mad I am. I feel like there's a lot of performative takes on Mike Krzyzewski having whatever. So I dropped something off for you the other day. And it was a belated Christmas gift because, look, things have been slow. So it finally arrived. I was really excited about this. I wanted you to open up this Christmas gift on the Panic Room because it's very appropriate. What's in there, Lauren?
Looks like some spurtles.
Yes.
There we go. Here's the money shot right here. This is the one. This is the one that you're gonna. Now I'm gonna have to get a full jar of mayo so that people can see because I have one of those squeeze bottles right now. That doesn't allow for you to really get the spurtling visual, I feel like, of how much mayo.
The spurtling visual.
Gonna have to make myself a little mayo salad for all y'all. Just saying. Do some sifting, perhaps, with this. I don't know. Something with eggs.
But are you going to be full on Lucinda's kitchen though?
I might have to, right? I've got to test the product out.
You do have to test the product. Now, all right.
What is this supposed to do?
Well, okay, so we've been using the other set because if you buy one, you get the other set for free. So that's why you have that set. So we've been using them in the house, and I will say that it's kind of just a glorified spatula or spoon. Do you?
What exactly?
Okay, the small one, that one right there.
What's this one?
That one. That one. Hold that one up. That's the one. That's worth the price of admission. That spurtle right there. Yes. The reason why that spurtle is worth the price of admission is because if you've got peanut butter, mayo, other kinds of jars where spoons don't really do the job, that little thing gets it all out. It's amazing. And then you can just spread it on the bread. That is worth the price of admission. If you got $20, the other spurtles are fine. You can sift with it. I mean, I made picadillo last night, which is a traditional Cuban dish, and I was using the larger spurtle to stir it up and all that stuff, and get everything mixed together. That one, which one's that one again?
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, so the big one's good for cooking, just straight up cooking. The big one's good for cooking. The slotted one's good for sifting, and if you don't want to pour all of the hot water and pasta into a into a colander, you can just use that thing and just, pour out the water and it sifts through, right? But that little one, the skinny one's money. I love that thing. So I'm curious your thoughts on the Spurtle.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try it out in the kitchen, and by in the kitchen, I mean like the lowest stakes scenario possible for me, and probably just using food to demonstrate random things because I'm not good in the idea of me pouring like a pot of pasta, like the water through here. Yeah, I already feel like that's a burn hazard for me, but we'll see.
Well, can we get that on video?
All right, I'll see what I can do. Yeah, okay. I'm sure my husband.
I was gonna say enlist Eric's help. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to do that.
I think he'll be both eager and triggered to see this play out in the kitchen because he's the cook of the two of us. I'm not very good at it. I do my best, Yeah,
that's all we ask.
Good effort, but
that's all we ask.
I think he's going to be both triggered and also amused by this whole exercise. So.
All right, so let's actually talk about this Coach K thing real quick before getting to some other ACC items from yesterday, because I do think we're starting to get a better idea of who's good in what is considered an average year for the ACC and whatnot. And I think actually that's the reason why these Coach K topics keep popping up, right? So yesterday, after they lose to Louisville, pretty hard-fought game. Carter Jones continues to be really, really good. Matthew Hurt was good for most of the game, but Louisville did a good job hunkering down on him later. So Coach K after the game gets a question from a Duke Chronicle reporter. And the question, essentially paraphrasing here, was like, how do you approach next week, right? Because they'll play again.
He said, like, where do you go from here, basically?
Yeah, it was basically a where do you go from here question.
And by the way, I was listening to the Duke radio broadcast for a portion of this, especially towards the end of the game, and they were sort of saying, like, this is a key moment for this season. So, like, it wasn't, and it did kind of feel that way in some senses.
Well, both Louisville and Duke needed this one in a bad way.
Yes.
So, like, if they're going to make anything for NCAA tournament purposes, if they're going to make any moves in the ACC in general, yesterday was really important for both teams. Louisville comes out on top. Fine. So there is an open conversation about, what's up with Duke, right? So the student reporter essentially asked that question, and Coach K was like, well, what's your major? Are you, after you just took this really tough test, are you thinking about the next test, or are you still thinking about the test that you just took? Essentially using the analogy like, look, man, I'm still processing this game that we just lost. I'm not really focused on, the following week. It's not all that different.
Yeah. I don't know why he was so fixated on the major thing, and I also thought the analogy made little sense, but yeah.
Well, but that's the thing. Coach K does this all the time, and I think that's where I ultimately come down on this. The reaction to this, the way it's being portrayed, and like I've subscribed to Rob Doster's newsletter on Substack, which is really, really good. And with all the things that went on yesterday, he decides to write like 5 paragraphs on this topic. I'm like, Rob, and I would tweet this to him. It's like, dude, you've been in that room multiple times. What happened on a Zoom teleconference was so low-level Coach K condescension that why is this a thing? Is it because it's a student reporter? He does that to student reporters all the time. Roy Williams recently misinterpreted something that came from a DTH reporter on a Zoom call and was like not having it. Yeah, and eventually like came around to understanding what he was getting at. And I think there's also a conversation to be had about the weirdness of doing these press conferences via Zoom. I've talked to ACC coaches about this where they feel disconnected.
That wasn't a DTH reporter, by the way. That was an adult one. But yeah.
Was it an adult one? Okay. So thank you for the clarification. But my point still stands, right?
Right. There's miscommunications that happen or whatever.
There's miscommunications happening on Zoom. Intention is very, very difficult to come across on Zoom. And Coach K likes to do these weird teachable moments to everybody, whether it's a student reporter or me or you. If anybody's ever asked a question in a press conference.
If it's your first question, he will likely,
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be your first question. He also knows who in that room he can pick on. Like, shout out to Barry Jacobs. I mean, Barry Jacobs gets dunked on by Mike Krzyzewski all the time. Yeah. Shout out to Josh Graham. Josh Graham knows exactly what I'm talking about when I'm about to say this. He would not disagree with me. That Josh Graham will ask a question that Coach K doesn't really particularly care for, and he gives him a really short answer, and he moves on. So, like, you know what I'm talking about, Lauren. So my point is he's done it to me. He's done it to student reporters. He dunks on guys like Barry Jacobs. He'll dunk on Luke DeCock. He'll do the same to CL Brown. Like, these are things that when he's not in a mood, he's like any other coach. He's just not really going to give you a good answer. But it's so low level to me. it basically shows who's paying attention during a normal, like a doldrums January ACC contest outside of North Carolina, and who just swoops in because they just don't like Coach K. Coach K's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. The guys open up talking about like what to do in a weird pandemic basketball season and wondering out loud, what are we really doing here? And what's the reaction? People are like, oh, he doesn't want to play. His back hurts. You got freaking idiots like Nate Oates at Alabama, who now people know who he is because he cowardly asked a reporter, well, what do you think about that? So this is stuff that just at this point I have little time for. If that comes across as me caping up for Mike Krzyzewski, so be it. The way I view it is I know who's there and I know who's not. I know who's deciding to use these types of things to get the engagement going and who ultimately goes, what's your problem with this? This is low level stuff. It's so low level to me. It's shocking that it becomes a thing on social media.
I mean, I am there all the time, so like I do have context. I think you would agree. I think like what struck me about it was that, and this is going to sound bad because I'm not trying to judge people for asking questions. It's hard to ask questions. I've been there. You try to get it out. You want to make it coherent and like quick, and it's hard. I thought this guy asked a good question, and one that I feel like if Steve Wiseman asked that question, he would have gotten a straight answer. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's my opinion. Like, I think if Steve had asked that question, he would have gotten a different answer. And I know Steve Wiseman is like a longtime beat reporter, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, like, this is still a kid just trying to do his job. This kid's been on a ton of Zooms, like for football, for basketball, for everything. Sure. Like, he's been working I've seen him on there. Like, he's been working his butt off. And so, like, from that standpoint, like, he has the video now and he has like this non-answer and it's a thing. But at the same time, like, I thought he was trying to get an answer to a fair question and somebody that if he hadn't been this kid asking his first question and Kay hadn't seen that because that is kind of Kay's thing, he would have given him a straight answer. And I think we can recognize that it's a thing that Kay does and be puzzled as to like why it's become a thing and also recognize that it's like kind of a little bit like not cool. Like it doesn't have to be the end of the world, but it's also a little not cool. Like that's okay to acknowledge both. You know what I mean? Like sure. We can acknowledge that, yes, this is not especially newsworthy, but at the same time, like it's still a thing. It's still a thing that you can look at and go, probably shouldn't do that. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I think it's.
No, I know what you're trying to say, but I also come at it from a perspective of, okay, if this is what you want to do for a living, right? You're gonna have moments where the coaches or even a player doesn't not really in the mood for it, and right. Like I think it's odd to me that it's, everybody's kind of coming out like, oh, this poor kid. No poor kid. If anything, it's like, all right, this is what it's going to be like. And the sooner you kind of get with the program that a coach might not like, ask your question or use you as an example. Because I've been in that situation too, where I've been used as an example by a coach or a player asking a question that was a perfectly valid question. But sometimes they'll use those moments to make a larger point to get people off their back about a particular question or a particular thing. That. So
yeah, I've also seen that theory floated that like Kay was trying to deflect attention. I don't necessarily think that's like I've seen Kay do something similar after wins, losses, whatever it is. There's just something that I think it hit on a bigger thing with him that bothered him. And that's why he went with it. I don't think it was like this kid is, fresh out of here and he's asking his first question. I think that helped. Like, I think if someone more established on the beat had asked the question, he probably would have tried to give it a straighter answer. But yeah. I think it probably was a line of questioning that he was already like, I don't know that he knows the answer to that question, quite frankly. And so, I think that's why he answered it the way that he did.
Maybe.
I don't know. I think it's okay for us to acknowledge that, like, yes, this is normal, but also, like, I mean, especially on a day, like, I'm not trying to, like, I'm not trying to hot take it too much, but I mean, 2 days ago, we had Kevin Keats on a Zoom presser, and at the end, he was like, hey, I appreciate you all so much. I know this has been a really difficult season for you. If you guys know of anything I can do for anybody that's, like, suffering in your lives with pandemic, even if I can just send him a video, like, just let me know. And I was just, like, struck by that because he doesn't have to do stuff like that. And so I just think it's okay. I'm not trying to like do a thing like Keats is nice and Kay is not. Like Kay does a lot of things for the community and everything like that. And I don't, he's a complex person like most of us. There are times where I think he exhibits a lot of kindness and patience in answering questions. And then there are times where he does what he did yesterday where you're like, did you really need to do that? But whatever. So it's like, I think it's okay for us to acknowledge that like, it's a little like, but at the same time, it's not any, like, I've seen worse that no one reported on. Let's put it that way.
Yes, but now everything's on Zoom, so it's all readily available.
Yes.
To go out there on social media, and then everybody has some fun with it. But look, like I said, if that makes me cape up for Cave, whatever, I don't care. What I do care about is whether or not, Lauren, we're starting to see a little bit of an establishment of the teams that we thought were going to be good are actually turning out to be good. Some teams come out of a COVID pause, and it takes a little bit of time for them to get going again. Other teams can come out of a COVID pause and just be on a tear. For instance, Florida State hadn't played for a while because of their own COVID pause. They go out there and they shoot 70% against NC State, and they've racked up some nice wins along the way. Virginia is kind of slowly doing their thing in not particularly like pretty fashion, but
pun intended, or no?
What?
Slowly doing their thing?
Yes, maybe. But no, I mean, I think we talked about this at the beginning of the season. The parts can change. The team might not be as talented as Tony Bennett teams we've seen in the past, but you can believe in. I think Sam Hauser's really talented, but there are some. I'm talking about what we've seen out of Virginia the last couple of years, and then this particular group. That's all I'm saying. But because of the way that they play, and we know that Tony Bennett's a good coach and all that stuff, they find their way to win. So Florida State has been as advertised. Virginia's doing what we kind of expected them to do. And then other teams have had a hard time where they look like they're going to turn a corner, but then they don't. Like, I don't know what's happened at Clemson. Things are just kind of, I mean, it's not that they're losing. It's not that they're losing. It's that they're getting crushed. Pitt looked like they might kind of be turning around. They took a really bad loss to Wake Forest yesterday. So there are some things that make sense, and then there are some others where you kind of chalk it up to maybe some little pandemic action.
Well, the interesting thing is, as much hand-wringing as we've done around here locally for like North Carolina and Duke, right? Right now, Carolina's 5-3 in the ACC, Duke's 3-3, and like the teams that all have 2 losses in the league, I don't know that we can be surefire that they're like going to be 3-4 in Louisville and Virginia Tech, right? And even Pitt, like you said, Pitt takes that loss. Carolina's at Pitt on Tuesday. That was always a more intriguing game to me sneakily than Carolina State, partially because State was coming off the COVID pause anyway, but like that's going to be a big game, I think, to determine where both of those teams are at. It's not a good loss for their NCAA tournament hopes, right? For Pitt, but like Wake was going to do this to someone. They were so close in every other game to beating somebody. They just were like, couldn't quite get that last little bit. And they finally did. Virginia Tech coming off getting like drubbed by Syracuse. So I think we're going to see some of that middle shake out a little bit here in the next week or so, because you have a chance for like a Georgia Tech coming off their own COVID pause, and they play that great game against Virginia. Are they going to be able to sustain that and be one of those top 4 teams? So I think that that's going to be kind of competitive in the middle there, and like whichever team can kind of get it together, and figure it all out in time is going to have a chance to have one of those top 4 seeds. But I do think it seems like Virginia and Florida State still are ahead of everybody else.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the ACC Panic Room. Enjoy using your spurtles.
Yeah, I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to...
What's the first move with the spurtle?
The first move.
What's the first move? What you going for? You going for mayo? You get a little peanut butter on some bread?
I don't have peanut butter in the house because my kid's allergic.
Oh, that's right. I forgot Alex.
That's going to be a problem. I'm going to have to figure this out. Since my husband's the cook, like maybe he can tell me. I might have to just like... Maybe I dress like Lucinda, try to go full Lucinda, bring my full fertile energy, and sample it out so everybody can see.
Love it.
I'll see what I can do.
I'm looking forward to the review, Lauren.
Okay.
I ordered a tack shaver too.
Well,
I'll see if the tack shaver can survive the Brillo pad. We'll see.
I can't bring myself to do the potato peeler thing because it's just like it feels offensive in a way I can't understand.
All right. We'll see y'all later in the week.